Hey, it's Ubu, and today I'm going to be reviewing the demo for Deadzone Rogue. This is something I've been wanting to do where I just sort of mix up my formula just a little bit, give a little bit of variety to my channel, rather than just having what I usually do, my gameplay and then review at the end. I wanted to do just sort of like a flat-out review of a game, and then do like a breakdown, have some B-roll and stuff in the background, and things like that you probably typically see on YouTube, or you're probably familiar with. I wanted to sort of add that to my docket of how I do videos. It's not something I'll do all the time, but just every once in a while to mix it up, like I said. So yeah, I picked this game today because I've been looking at it for a while, and I thought it was really interesting looking. I've been really into like action roguelike games lately in my spare time, and this is sort of like a first-person shooter sort of blend of those mechanics, because usually roguelikes are like, you know, isometric or sort of like, you know, ARPG kind of style. So seeing a first-person shooter like this with roguelike mechanics really fascinated me. So I'm going to go over what the game is and what it's about, sort of describe what you can expect from the game. I'm going to share my first impressions and my general thoughts on what I experienced in the demo, and then at the end I will then break it down and review it like I normally do. I will do visuals, audio, mechanics, story and concept, and performance, and then I will give the game my final judgment. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Starting my review here, I wanted to show that there is a wide variety of settings here on the main menu, which is very welcome, and I very much appreciate that. So from controls to video settings to audio settings to key bindings and all of that jazz, there's a lot here to tinker with if that's what you're into. So yeah, that's really great. I'm going to go over some key mechanics now to give you sort of an overview of what you can expect in the game in terms of mechanics and just the overall way the game works. So there are over 30 powerful weapons, from guns to melee weapons to grenades, each with elemental effects such as fire, ice, lightning, and void with unique effects. There's also sort of a rarity system as you play the game and upgrade weapons. You will, you know, of course, have more and more perks and things of that nature associated with the weapon. So the higher the rarity, you know, the better the element is, or the better the perk is. There's other perks like weak point damage and things of that nature as well. It's not just elements. So I thought that was pretty cool. As you play through the game, you'll come across perks, items, and augments to enhance you and your arsenal, like reloading faster, gain more health on kills, move faster when aimed down sights, etc. And one of my favorites was getting a kill with my secondary weapon will reload my primary weapon, which I thought was especially useful when I was using the minigun because it had such a low reload speed. The game is segmented into clearing rooms, so you will clear a room filled with enemies, and they can be a variety of enemies like melee, flying, ranged, turrets, exploding spiders, and even elites, which are very powerful enemies that require some caution when engaging them. In the first mission that you have in the game, the very first story mission, which is called, I believe, Adventure Difficulty, there are 30 rooms total for the first story mission, with a final boss at the end. Every few rooms, you can expect to enter a safe room, where you will recover a small portion of your HP, and then you can also spend your currency, such as scrap and tech points, on vital upgrades. Tech points are used to purchase permanent upgrades, such as your grenade cooldown, shield recharge, delay, movement speed, elemental damage, etc. So all kinds of different attributes that your character has, you can permanently upgrade, so you have some sort of power creep as you progress, which is really nice. So if you happen to die and need to start over, you at least retain some of your power going forward. So it's really rewarding and I think really nice. Scraps are used to purchase items, upgrade weapons, upgrade armor, and even restore additional HP. When you're in the fabricator using your scraps, you can upgrade the quality of a weapon or its level. So upgrading a weapon's level just increases its damage by 10%. Upgrading its quality is increasing its rarity. So some weapons even allow you to upgrade them to legendary status, which is really nice because legendary weapons, from what I experienced, are pretty powerful. As you progress through each room, enemies will drop scraps, tech points, and even weapons and armor that you can switch out with what you're currently wearing. So keep an eye out for upgrades as you clear rooms. You never know what may drop. You have to look real close, compare everything. Generally speaking, upgrades for me were few and far between from actual enemy drops, but I did find several that I wanted to, of course, experiment with, different elements and things of that nature. So yeah, don't be afraid to pick up something different and try it out as you go. And once you've completed the first 30 rooms, including the final boss, the game basically starts over, and you're now able to choose the next mission, as well as challenge modes that increases the strength of enemies, which rewards you with more currency to increase your power. So there is some replayability here, of course. That's sort of the whole, stick when it comes to roguelite games, is that it's all about replayability. You want to progress, you want to become more powerful, you want to start over, and you want to keep doing that loop until you get all you can get out of the game. Of course, there's so many different weapons and powers and upgrades to work towards. The game has a lot going for it in terms of something to work towards. So I think that's one of the game's strengths from what I experienced. I did not do any of the challenge modes, so I'm not really sure of their difficulty spikes, but that is something to look forward to if you're interested. Now, unless I missed something, that's basically all you can expect from the game in terms of its mechanics in general, but of course, as you play the game, you'll start to understand this more for yourself, how everything sort of coincides with each other in terms of clear a room, you get your perk, your augment, or your item at the end of the room, and then you move on to the next room. And you do that as you progress and hopefully become more powerful. Use your currency sparingly or wisely. And like I said, don't be afraid to experiment with different things as you progress. It can be a lot of fun to pair different elements and weapon types together. Now I'll go over my general impressions and then do my review process and give it my final judgment. So, generally speaking, I think the game is quite enjoyable. From what I experienced, all I did was the first 30 levels. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it has a lot going for it. It has a lot of potential to really be this, unique sort of horror roguelike shooter. And I don't think we have a lot of those that I'm aware of out in the space right now. So I thought it was a pretty cool game to play. I do have some complaints about the game. I think my only real problem with it is that it seems rather easy right out the gate. Of course, there are some rooms that really test you, like that have, multiple elites or something of that nature. So you have to be really careful with that, but your power creep is quite significant early on, at least in my experience. I used the minigun most of the game, and it was really cool. I didn't start experimenting with different guns until like the last 5 levels or something, which is kind of risky, but by then, my perks and everything were so strong that everything seemed to work together pretty well. But of course, you can really focus on building something around a weapon. Like using the minigun, I really focused on like ammo efficiency and reloading and things of that nature. So it worked really well. The minigun was a lot of fun. Aside from that, I almost feel like 30 rooms is too many personally. After a while, I don't know. Obviously in challenge modes, they seem to increase the amount of rooms as well, unless I misread that. You can spend a lot of time doing these runs, which I think is good and bad at the same time. If someone wants to just hop in and do a quick run or something, I'm not sure if that option is there for them. 30 rooms that, took me over an hour or so to get through them. I think that's really my only big complaint about the gameplay loop. Aside from that, I think everything came together pretty well in general, so now I'll review the demo and its different aspects, like I stated earlier. So we'll start with visuals. I think the game visually is pretty solid. I quite like its art direction and the just retro-futurist sort of sci-fi take on all of it. I like the enemy design, mechanical monstrosities or weird, creepy people with melee weapons, and it reminds me a lot of different things. It kind of reminds me of like the Vex from Destiny, but some other things as well. Very familiar yet unique enemy designs. I think they're really cool. Like the creepy spider bosses and stuff that you come across are pretty cool, and I really like that. So visually, I think the game is fine. While each room is generally rather small, they all do seem unique to a degree. Like none of them really felt like repeats. There are some big rooms as well that have like trees and stuff, like an oasis in the middle of one of the rooms and some big, planetary hologram and stuff like that. So there's a lot of level design variety as well, which I really enjoyed. So visually, overall, I think the game is really cool. I like the way, the explosion effects are, all the bullets and stuff flying around, currency dropping out of enemies and things of that nature. I think all of it aesthetically is pretty cool. So I quite like the game visually, and I think it did just fine. I think the audio is super solid as well. I really like the punchy gun sounds. The music is pretty solid, even though I think the music itself, every time you walk into the room, it seems like the same music track plays, so it kind of gets redundant after a while. Other than that, sound design is pretty solid. I really like this, just the sound of combat in general, as you're shooting and, throwing grenades, and they're shooting back at you, and, stuff is falling apart and blowing up and stuff. It's really cool stuff, really engaging. So I think audio is especially strong, and the gun sound designs, because there's a lot of games out there I don't think that do guns very well. I think this game has really nice, punchy, unique gun sounds, and I really appreciate that. And I think it sounds really cool, especially the minigun. I really like the minigun. It sounds awesome when you're shooting it, so really cool stuff. Mechanically, like I've gone over, I think the game is pretty solid. It has a decent progression to work towards in terms of your permanent upgrades and things of that nature. And then the gameplay loop itself, with getting random perks and things of that nature to sort of build yourself up in your own way as you move forward, I think is really engaging. I think it's really fun, and that's what I like about roguelikes and things of that nature, is just sort of going with what the game gets you and sort of thinking on your toes a lot and being like, well, I like how this perk might work with this other perk kind of thing. And you just build yourself up as you move forward, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. My only problem with mechanics is, like I said, I think there's too many rooms. I think 30 rooms is a lot. Like I said, maybe there are people who just want to hop on and do like a quick run of some kind. I don't know if there's an option for that. Doing like 10 rooms or 15 or 20 rooms, I think would be more interesting personally, but 30 rooms felt kind of like a slog towards the end for some reason, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. In terms of story and concept, there's not much story. I mean, there is like a little bit of flavor added with the main character we're playing as, referencing things about the ship and that they need to get help, and you know, they'll have some voice lines here and there just sort of randomly throughout the playthrough. I'm not sure what that's going to lead up to necessarily, or if it's really all that important, but I did find it interesting that they're trying to do something of that nature, so you're not just like this thing that's going through and you never hear it speak. You're just like, that could work too, like you're just this nameless, voiceless soldier. But they did give him a voice, which I think is cool. And when you beat the first 30 levels, you sort of like wake up back where you started, almost like you're in this weird loop. He's like, I can't remember anything. And I think as you do more runs and more, you know, time loops or whatever is happening, maybe more of the story will unfold. And I think that's actually pretty interesting. It's another thing to add to the replayability. Is the more you replay it, the more you get through runs, the more the game sort of opens up and breathes and gives you more information. And I think that could work in the game's favor. And I think that would be really cool, because I like the setting and everything, so a little story doesn't hurt. So yeah, I could see where they're going with that. And conceptually, I really like the game in terms of just a roguelike horror FPS. I think it's a really cool idea, and hopefully we'll see more games like this and see where this game goes, and its development process, I hope, goes well. So yeah, really cool concept. In terms of performance, I'm like right at the recommended settings. I played on high settings to begin with, and it was a little too much for my computer. Nothing really egregious was happening, nothing like crazy in terms of frame drops or anything, but I could tell my computer was straining a little bit. So I turned everything down to normal, and it was still noticeable that, you know, my fans were kind of kicked on and stuff, but the game ran pretty well still. So I would definitely check the recommended requirements for this game before you play it, just in case if you're not sure of what your computer will do. But overall performance, I would say, was pretty solid in general. So with all that being said, my final judgment for the Deadzone Rogue demo is, I would say, it's good. So while it's on the middle of my scale, it still has a lot going for it in terms of the visuals and the audio and the mechanics. I still feel like there's some untapped potential with the story, and there are a few things I would probably change or would like to see changed, or maybe have some additional options of having fewer floors to progress through as an option or something of that nature. I think that would be a welcome addition. So overall, I would say it was a pretty fun game. Like I said, I would like to see a few small adjustments, but from what I experienced, I think it was a pretty fun game. The official release of the game is actually right around the corner on April 29th, but I recommend you go play the demo for yourself first, just to make sure you really enjoy what you have been shown here today. Anyways, that's my review for the Deadzone Rogue demo. I will work on how I do these and hopefully do it in a more congruent, just better way as I go forward. I like the formula that I have picked out here. I just need to, I think, execute it better as we go forward. But I kind of like to work on the fly. That helps me sort of naturally build a process, if that makes sense. So anyways, tell me what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy my review? Do you agree or disagree with me? You just want to say hi? Let me know what's up. And if you enjoy my content and want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, leave a like, comment, share the video too. I'd really appreciate your support. And don't forget to check the pinned comment below for the links to everything. Go play this game for yourself and form your own opinion. And tell the developer what you think. I'm sure they'd really appreciate your feedback as well as mine. Well, thanks for watching my video. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I think that's all I have to say about it. So thanks for hanging out with me. And don't forget, Pale Moth is always watching.